think the directors were all expecting Rangers to win, as everyone would do. And there would be a sellout crowd, and the TV money would keep the club alive. So they told us really we had to win.
Dundee take the lead, it's Paul Tosh! Look at the ball, falls for Shaw. This is McCann, a chance on here for Dundee. Delicate should be scored, there's a brilliant goal! Neil McCann for Dundee. A flash of genius from the Dundee youngster. And it looks like earning his team a cup final place. This will be everyone forward. The ball will be launched by Sanderson. There's no time. Dundee in the final.
And I remember getting after the celebrations to the dressing room area, and Malcolm Mead, who was the vice chairman at that time, met me in the corridor. And Malcolm was very emotional, and because he realised how much it meant to the club. And the rest of the directors were also in the dressing room celebrating. And I had absolutely no emotion whatsoever. I was totally drained. I was happy, very, very happy, but it just was such a relief. I just wanted to go somewhere quietly. And it wasn't until the next day then we realised we were in the cup final.
Nearly 17,000 Dundee fans, many from distant parts of the globe, made the trip for Dundee's first major final since 1980. And with only 2 defeats from their last 21 games, players and fans alike were confident of success.
The game before the cup final, we played Dundee United at Tannadice. We're 3-0 up, playing some fabulous football. Eventually won the game 3-2, which at that particular game was very flattering to Dundee United. I think they scored 2 goals in the last 15 minutes or so, but we played some great football for an hour. And went into the game probably slight favourites against Aberdeen, because Aberdeen weren't doing too well. But I don't know whether we got caught in the excitement of the game, or whether we just weren't good enough on the day. But we struggled, there's no doubt about that, and we let everyone down.
Good running by Glass, great ball in! Dodds for Aberdeen! Oh, great sleight of foot there. Duncan Shearer, 2-0 to Aberdeen.
Following the cup final defeat, in the league a demoralised Dundee could only finish 5th, and full-time football would only continue after a drastic cost-cutting exercise, which saw several top players, including Neil McCann, sold. The club looked ill-equipped for a promotion challenge in season 1996-97.
The chairman had come back for the cup final and had insisted that we sell Morton Vekhorst. So again, we went back on the phone again, a little bit under duress, but we had to do it. That was part and parcel of the job. Tommy Burns at Celtic at that time decided he would buy Morton, I think, for about £350,000, and also included the deal we would take Barry Smith up to Dundee. So that was frustrating, and we slipped out of the promotion running in that season. I just think it was one player too many that was sold at that particular time.
The mercurial Chick Charnley had already shown his ability, but he was also prone to moments of madness, which was to result in him being sent off 4 times while at Dens. By now, Darius Adamczyk was back at Dens, and with Brayside forming a solid central defensive partnership alongside ex-Celt Barry Smith, a revitalised Dundee again reached the semi-final of the Coca-Cola Cup. That was only Dundee's 3rd defeat in 17 games, but it was to signal the end of a spell of good form. By the end of the year, Jim Duffy, who had worked wonders on a shoestring, accepted an offer to become manager of Hibs.
On a professional level, I think it was the right thing for me to do. I think they were a big club in the Premier League, a lot of ambition, and I think people would have looked at my ambition if I wouldn't have taken the job. I was offered it, I didn't apply for it. But when I look back now, in hindsight, it didn't work out for me at Hibs. So perhaps if we could have worked things out and maybe had 1 or 2 investors into Dundee, it'd have been great to stay there.
Assistant boss John McCormack took over as manager. But although Scotland under-21 winger Ian Anderson continued to show his flair with a series of stunning goals, Dundee narrowly failed to secure the playoff spot. And with player after player being sold, demoralised fans could only wonder where it would all end. Clearly, there was no future under Canadian Ron Dixon. And that June, the controlling interest in the club changed hands.
I think we'd been interested for possibly about a year in taking over the club before we took over in '97. We had been exploring the possibility. I'd met the previous incumbent here at Dens Park, Mr. Dixon, over in Seattle, and had a chat with him and tried to organise some sort of deal. And eventually, '97, we took the club over and have taken the club from then to where we are at the moment.
The new regime had brought fresh enthusiasm, and in the prelude to the 1997-98 campaign, McCormack was given the financial backing to sign several players, including Livingston goalkeeper Robert Douglas.
Jim Leishman phoned me to say that Dundee had put a bid in, and obviously had bought a lot of players at the time. To be honest, I was really enjoying it at Livingston, although I was part-time. I wasn't sure if I wanted to move because I was enjoying it so much, and then we spoke. John McCormack was at a game that night. I went in to see Jim Leishman, and he said, look, you're going to Sleeping Giants. So at that point they'd signed about 9 players, and I think I was the 10th, and they were looking to be challenging for the First Division title, which they did.
The Dark Blues got off to a great start against fellow promotion hopefuls Falkirk, and soon they were setting a cracking pace at the top of the league. However, by February 1998, poor home form had convinced the board that managerial change was necessary. John McCormack was replaced by old Dens favourite Jockey Scott. Under his direction, Dundee had 3 straight league wins before meeting Rangers in the quarter-final of the Scottish Cup. Dundee continued to set the pace at the top of the First Division. A run of 8 successive wins, leaving them needing just 1 point from the match against Raith Rovers in April to win the championship. After 4 long years in the wilderness, Dundee were back in the top flight. There were great celebrations when the First Division Championship trophy was presented the following week at Dens, following their 1-1 draw with Ayr United. After a poor start to their Premier League campaign, which began with 3 defeats and not a goal scored, a revamped Dundee bounced back with a 2-0 triumph at Tynecastle.
Madison towards the back post, Richie clears a damn trick with another try, it's a goal! Game over, Dundee 2-0 up!
That proved the catalyst for a number of fine results. And in November, the Dark Blues made the short trip down the street to defeat local rivals Dundee United, courtesy of a sensational goal by James Grady.
It's dropped now for Grady! Oh! What a glorious goal from James Grady! Last season's top scorer who fired Dundee into the Scottish Premier League has finally broken the Derby deadlock.
Then came a prolonged slump, and by mid-March Dundee lay just 3 points off the bottom of the league. Meanwhile, talk of a merger with Dundee United had prompted emotional protests from Dundee fans, before the board admitted their inability to raise their 1.2 million share of the funding for the 2 new stands to bring Dens Park up to the required 10,000 all-seated capacity.
Last season we were under a lot of pressure with trying to get funding to build the stands, and not winning so many games as we'd hoped early on, it put everybody at the club under pressure. But when things did turn around and we did get the good run in, I give the whole place a lift, and I made the job a wee bit easier for the funding for the stands. 5-1. Really proud of it and delighted when you've seen the stands from start to finish and being finished in a record time, and we're being told by the SPL even if you start the stands you might not finish them, so you might not be in the league next year anyway. But we're always totally convinced that once that we had started the project, we would be ready on time.
At the end of April, the board finally announced their intention to go it alone, and soon the bulldozers had reduced both ends of the ground to rubble. It had been one of the most traumatic spells in Dundee's 106-year history, but Jockey Scott and his players had remained focused on footballing matters.
Dundee have taken the lead. 24 minutes into the second half. So simple in the end. Boyack. The counter-attack is on. No offside flag. Here's Grady. 1 against 1. Grady can finish it. And he does! James Grady has scored to make it 2-0 to Dundee.
In an end-of-season flourish, relegation fears were cast aside as the Dark Blues went on to finish 5th, their highest ever Premier placing and one that left them above Dundee United for the first time in 25 years. But as the foundations of the new stands almost miraculously began to appear, it was farewell to fans' favourites Darius Adamchuk, Ian Anderson and Brian Irvin. The latter's determination almost symbolising Dundee's victory over adversity, as the trio exercised their right to move on under the Bosman ruling. It was now a race against time, with 10 weeks to complete the stands. But work was completed 10 days before the July the 31st deadline. Fittingly, the fans voted the new stands to be named after Dens legends Bob Shankly and Bobby Cox. Dundee were to find it harder going at the start of the new season. Home form was poor, but away performances were a different story. And in December they hit the high spots with a stunning 2-1 victory over Rangers at Ibrox.
Nice ball inside. It's in. Dundee have scored. An amazing winner that will be.
Nevertheless, results were frustratingly inconsistent. But one highlight was a stunning strike by midfielder Hugh Robertson against Celtic.
And that's not all. That's a magnificent goal by Hugh Robertson. Listen to them applauding that.
Great encouragement could be taken from the progress of young central defender Lee Wilkie and midfielders Gavin Ray and Stephen Boyack, who have now all been capped at under-21 level. Any lingering prospects of relegation were then dispelled with a fine continental-flavoured finish to the season.
That's a decent-looking ball, and that's a goal. Luna. A superb ball played inside to him.
I'd like to think that we've done well in the Premier and we're able to look forward now, whereas the past couple of years it's all been about survival. We'd like to think that we've got a stable enough team that we can maybe look for higher up in the league, maybe even places in Europe. But at the start of each season, the tightness of the league, it is all about survival. But next season coming up, we want to be in the top 6 after the first 3 rounds of games, because that's where the big games are going to be. You want to be playing against Celtic and Rangers, so hopefully next season we'll be able to do that.
Back at Dens, as the first season of the new millennium drew to a close, Dundee fans were to be rewarded with a stirring victory over their city rivals Dundee United. Goals from Faulkner and Grady were to send the Dens fans away in exuberant mood after a memorable day in the sun. Following this successful encounter, that great club servant Jockey Scott and his assistant Jimmy Bone were to part company from Dens Park, and a new management team take over the running of the Dark Blues. But the Dundee faithful will always follow the fortunes of their team in triumph and adversity, in the knowledge that their club has a proud past and a unique place in Scottish football history.
It was a club of stature, and in my opinion, it has the great potential still to be in the city of Dundee a club of stature.
I've thoroughly enjoyed my time as a player, a coach and a manager here.
Team spirit has always been good here since I've been here. It's always been a laugh and a joke, but when it goes into the park, everyone fights for each other, which is one of the main aspects of their team.